You're not going to get the answer to everything, and you're okay with it. She's a little bit of a mystery.
She was so perfect for this with this director who directed this movie like it was an art installation. Anya's whole look, she looks like she could be in a painting.
Yeah.
So this was a home run. Welcome to the table.
We're your hosts, Michelle and Laura.
This is where we talk movies, food, and the ways that they bring us together. Grab a seat. This episode starts now.
Okay, Michelle, our Regency season continues. I am so excited to talk about Emma. I feel like you have been wanting me to watch this movie for so long, and I feel like I'm really going to let you down this episode, but
No.
Not in a way that I didn't like it. It was
Okay.
just, I have some very Laura-isms to share with my experience of watching this movie, so it's going to be
We
great.
love it.
Since you've seen this multiple times, what is your history with the first time that you saw it, and has it gotten any better since you watched it this time?
Good question. In our last episode, in case you didn't catch it, we covered Sense and Sensibility, the 1995 version, the film. And in that, I shared that I had kind of a strange entry point into period films, all of like Jane Austen's stuff, which was through a modern retelling in a book. So after I read that book, I started going through all of the movies and several of the different versions, and this was on that list. And of all of them that I saw, which was I think really only the movies that we're covering in this series, this was my favorite. I think that this was my favorite story-wise. This was my favorite production-wise. This one really stands out to me from the others as doing something completely different. This is like a very specific approach to making a story, bringing a story like this to life. And it worked really well for me, but I'm also recognizing that, you know, I'm a designer and I'm an artist. And obviously, like, I love all of the fanfare. So this just landed perfectly for me.
As I was watching this, I started to do a little bit of a comparison to the other movies that we've done so far and that we're going to do. Teaser, we will be doing Pride and Prejudice, and I haven't seen that whole movie, but I was still kind of able to like keep that in the back of my mind. And I feel the same way. I feel like the entire time my thought was, wow, the production design of this movie, just if you were to put it side by side to some of the other ones that we've done, is so impressive. And I think, especially if you're looking at it from like a designer's perspective, all of the like color palettes and the down to the tiny details of the rooms and the lighting and just the ambiance that they created in this movie, it really was a work of art, as very much like something that I would just love to have on because it's so beautiful. Like I could watch it without dialogue and be walking by in a museum and want to stop and look at it for a little while. I found it artistically, it's just such a beautiful experience.
And I know we're going to be talking, I'm sure, because I already have it all over my notes, about Sense and Sensibility a ton in this episode. But just to start by saying, it's not, you know, that movie was also... my flowers are already, these are kind of like old flowers. So you may see petals falling from my head.
Flowers.
Oh, these are real flowers, baby.
They're not from Joanne Fabrics, R.I.P.
Yes. So if you're not watching on the video version, which you can by clicking below, I have constructed myself a headband with real flowers attached to it. I was really intimidated trying to come up with a costume for this movie, but I thought just do something ridiculous and it'll work. So
I think this is one of your best, and I could have added to it because Mom bought me these beautiful flowers when we moved into our apartment, but they're not doing too great because we haven't gotten much sun. It's really rainy this week.
Wow, I'm laughing because these flowers on my headband are also from Mom. Okay, so I think that Dad got her a beautiful bouquet for Valentine's Day, but they were heading out of town essentially the next day on February 15th. So they gave me their leftover flowers when they headed out of town.
That's
And
wonderful.
they're still like, they're still doing okay.
Complete tangent, but shout out to our mom because she is the absolute like quintessential mom who just will give away all of her possessions. We gifted her a really nice, like, very small bottle of balsamic vinegar when we got back from Italy, and she was been sending me things to our new place. And she tried to send me home with it yesterday, and I was like, "Well, this is a gift, so I'm putting my foot down with this one."
Well, that is such a mom move, and we
Such a
love her for it. Do you want to start by telling me your story about how you watched this? Because it sounded like it was a tumultuous journey.
Oh my gosh. Actually, great transition into talking about our parents. So I had gone down and seen them this week. We were actually, Michelle and I were supposed to be recording this on Tuesday. It's Thursday, right? We're supposed to.
Hmm.
So we shifted our schedule a little bit. So I said, no problem. I'm gonna, they have a great big old TV. I'm gonna watch it when I go there. It's gonna be great. So we were at a friend's house and we got home a little bit later because we had dinner, and I turned it on probably around like 9:50. You have the text receipts.
What were you thinking?
A mistake, a big mistake. I think I got 25 minutes in and I woke up drooling on myself. My biggest mistake was like not getting a snack or something. You know how I am with dark rooms, couches, and movies late at night. It's a nightmare combination for me. When I watched Sense and Sensibility, I watched it in broad daylight. It was probably around noon. I had a cup of tea. I was in bed, stayed awake the whole time. I could tell you every detail of this movie. So I said, not a problem. We're gonna record this on Thursday. I have so much time. I had a full day of work on Wednesday, yesterday, and I got back late. We still do not have a couch or a TV in our apartment, and there was something testing me to watch this movie because I had rented it on Apple TV, which I watched on at our parents' house. And I was like, okay, I'll get it on the computer. It was giving me a lot of issues. It was not showing up. And I was like, it's totally fine. I'll just watch it on my phone. Great idea.
This movie on your phone?
And this is coming from, so just backpedaling to my original praise for this movie. My entire thought when I started it and the second time when I was watching the second half was, this movie deserves to be watched in a movie theater, not at home, and certainly not on a phone. Took it upon myself to say, it doesn't matter that we don't have a couch. I'm going to still sit in my living room on pillows on my rug. So that's kind of been my setup, my cozy setup the last couple of nights. I'm on the computer doing some things. So I was kind of like prop myself against the wall. I had, the giving you the whole, I should have taken a photo of this, but I was using my phone to watch the movie, so I couldn't have. And I am very sad to say that even in that position, I still fell asleep multiple times. I rewound. I was like, you need to focus. You need to really dive into this movie. But I will say, I got the full scope enough.
Okay.
I was very excited to talk about this today, but I felt like it was necessary to give you the background so you can really understand how I watch this movie and why I'm going to have to now rewatch it the minute that I find a movie theater that replays it. So sorry to the creators of this movie. I know that was not your intention of how you would want someone to watch this, but I still very much enjoyed it.
Well, I do not have an interesting story about my watching experience, so let's roll into what we loved.
If I could just say like the color palette of this movie, I think of like soft pinks, a little bit of blue, beautiful greens. Like whoever was sitting down and orchestrating what this was going to look like to viewers, I would have loved to have been in that room and would have loved to see like the creative boards come to life. and then complementing that with the production design. You know how I'm very big on like, I hate overhead lighting. And my entire thought this movie was like, wow, would I love to be in one of these candlelit rooms. And it was so like every room you just wanted to be in, even down to like the church pews, which were a mint color green, and then working off all of like the costume designs, which are so well thought out. I mean, this is one of those movies, same as we said in Sense and Sensibility, like how many costume changes do we think Anya Taylor-Joy had? I hope that she kept some of these because she looked incredible. And as always with fantastic filmmaking and storytelling, using costumes as like a mouthpiece to show who the characters are. And this movie is one that takes place over seasons. That's how they break up the movie. And even just the like decision to announce like spring with this simple little like side table and a backdrop, and it made me want to be there. It made me want to live in this world. I would have loved to have like been her matchmaking project just so I could
You
like
want to be Harriet.
just live nearby.
All right, so we have another fabulous. Oh, actually, I was going to say we have another fabulous woman director. In Sense and Sensibility, we had a fabulous woman writer, screenwriter, and then we had Ang Lee direct it, who did a fabulous job. But in this movie, this is the first time I thought to look this up to see who the director was, and this is my new favorite person, Autumn de Wilde, this is her only feature film. She's directed some other small things, but she's mostly known for portraiture and commercial work, specifically photography of musicians. So I think just that alone kind of explains why this movie has the look that it does. I mean, this whole movie looks like portraits. I went down a rabbit hole and I have some fun facts about Autumn de Wilde that I would like to share with you, Laura.
Please.
In case you didn't come across these. I know you were using your phone to watch, so you had limited Googling abilities. All right, so first fact about Autumn de Wilde is that her mother, Mary, lived in England, which was kind of the impetus to her becoming an Anglophile, which kind of led to working on this film. Her daughter, her name is Arrow de Wilde. I mean, like, obsessed with these people.
Characters in the movie. They could have been in the movie. It would have been much better than Frank.
Yeah, Frank, like, really. So Arrow de Wilde is the lead singer for the Los Angeles-based band called Starcrawler. So next time we're both in Los Angeles, we'll have to see if they're playing anywhere, because I'm sure we'd love her too. Back to Autumn de Wilde. So she has arthritis, which means that she has to use a cane. But I love that she leans into it, and her current cane that she uses is styled after one that was owned by Henri Toulouse-Lautrec, and it holds a shot of whiskey, which she purchased in a London umbrella shop. And if you look her up, I feel like her vibe reminds me so much of Amy Sherman-Palladino, who created Gilmore Girls, Mrs. Maisel, etc. One of my favorite creative people. And I hope that somehow the two of them are friends, because they both have that kind of like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want and be this creative person, and everyone just like get out of my way and let me work.
That description also reminded me of someone. It could have been Mary Poppins. So maybe like a Mary Poppins and Amy Sherman-Palladino like crossover, which are Julie Andrews and Amy. Combination.
Wow. So many of my favorite things.
Yes.
The creativity in this movie is just, it's off the charts.
This is a big year for Michelle and I wanting to, I mean, we're always doing this, but like spotlighting or trying to find really inspiring women of all ages. That was so wonderful. I can't wait to look her up now.
Autumn, you're invited to the table if you'd ever like to join us.
Yeah.
We'll add her to your dream dinner party list.
And this could be a question for the table. Is there a director let's do female
Yeah.
directors that inspire you the most, or it could be outside of the director realm, someone in creative spaces that you really look up to, and why do you look up to them? So maybe pose that to your next table conversation with friends or family. Well, aside from Autumn, what else? What else do we love about this movie?
So many things. This is more of a observation than a thing that I loved, but just kind of talking about the setting. I felt like in contrast to Sense and Sensibility, this story felt a lot more contained. The property where this took place, it was all kind of near each other. And it's interesting because this movie came out right before COVID, so it almost feels like this could have been a little bubble in time, because the only people that were really coming and going were Frank Churchill, Jane Fairfax, Mr. Eaton's wife, and then Emma's sister Isabel and her family.
I really wish that we would have gotten some sea, just one sea scene, just one. I would have loved to have been like a worker on that ship just to see what was going on behind
the Jane story, I feel like could be its own little short idea jar. We're going to write the Jane Fairfax at Sea spinoff. All right. I mean, I have lots of things that I want to say about cast members, but I want to hand it over to you first. Who stood out to you first and foremost in this film?
I honestly love Mr. Knightley, played by Johnny Flynn. I did watch the show Ripley with Andrew Scott, which is probably one of the most memorable shows that I've watched on a streaming service in the last like 5 years, and talk about production and absolute just like chef's kiss. You had your hand raised.
I have my hand raised because we also watched one episode together on the big screen when I was visiting LA.
Oh, and such a good episode. If you have not watched Ripley, this is
gorgeous
recommendations corner. Absolutely go see it. Based on the book and previous iterations of the movie. Talented Mr. Ripley, but Johnny Flynn is in this movie, and I would say he's a very in the show. He's a lot more of like a subtle. He has a very subtle disposition. He doesn't have, I would say, too much. Like he doesn't have a complete range in terms of his emotions. He's almost like one speed throughout the show, and is kind of like a almost back end drum beat. So it was kind of fun to see him in this role where he does also have that kind of like soft disposition. But we see this wide range of emotions, and seeing him sort of like, I don't want to use the term unravel, but we see him falling in love even more, or really trying to find ways to wear his heart on his sleeve a lot in this movie. But there's just some certain moments with him that I feel like they really use Johnny Flynn well. He's just a good character. I think he's like a good natured person. We talked a lot about in Sense and Sensibility how a lot of the male characters are very boring in these books, and like, yes, there are elements of maybe Mr. Knightley isn't the most exciting person, but I love the how we sort of meet him and Emma. They clearly have this history and this friendship that dates back a while. They don't really explain too much of it, but it's almost like they're just in each other's universes. And the whole time you're kind of like, they're probably going to end up together, right? Right? We hope so. So I feel like I just really enjoyed a lot of those moments with him.
Also felt like he was way more interesting and dynamic than any of the guys in Sense and Sensibility, including Mr. Willoughby. I mean, maybe he doesn't have Mr. Willoughby's looks and charm, but I feel like everything that he is and that he brings to this role is like way better than that.
And I think it's a great just story or character juxtaposition of like having Frank, who literally is just like a stick of meat. Like he's a beautiful man, but has I can't even recall him having more than like 3 lines in this movie. He's just there to ride up on horseback and leave. He does get his glowing moment, which continues into our sensual apple eating. So he did bite into an apple, but not quite as
Oh,
well
a
as this
peach.
movie. Was it a peach? No, I think he ate an apple at one point, and maybe also a peach.
Wait, are we talking about Mr. Knightley? Or are we talking about
No, I was talking about Frank.
yeah. Oh, I thought that that was a peach.
But yeah, I just think it was fun to watch him go through these different phases throughout the movie. Like we see him in a lot of different situations that he's trying to unpack with very eloquent words, but not being fully able to communicate what he wants to say. Really,
Yeah.
at the end, last 20 minutes.
Their chemistry is so good. But I think that this is also just my favorite kind of love story. I mean, we just recorded an episode about who we thought were our best couples, worst couples, and our movie character crushes. And we talked about, or you brought up Maddie and Jenna from 13 Going on 30, and how their relationship was so strong and they were such a great couple because they had this foundation of friendship. And you really feel that in this. This is like friends to lovers. We got this like very slow burn of them coming together. But I think that these kind of relationships, friends to lover relationships, are so good because you are embracing this person with knowing all of their flaws and
Mhm.
loving them anyway. I mean, I really can't think of like any better, healthier way to come into a romantic relationship. So yeah, I felt like it was like the foundation of that combined with the characters, that their characters were so contrasting. Like they definitely have different energy, and then just kind of like that the act three. I don't know. It's funny that you said in the beginning you thought immediately that they were going to get together, and I think that the first time that I watched this, again, still kind of like a Jane Austen newbie and not really understanding
Mhm.
the structure of these movies and how it all works, because I don't think I knew what was happening. And I think I was so confused as to who he was, because they don't the first time I watched it, I thought I must have missed something. And then the second time I did go and look it up. I'm like, how is he even connected to this family? And it is that it's her sister's husband's brother, right?
I,
I
that's the
think
first
that
time I'm learning this. That's the first time
okay.
I'm hearing
I
this
th-
because I could not tell you one of. I am completely lost with the relationships in this movie. So
okay, so I think that that is the connection, but it also kind of gave the sense that I think they kind of alluded that they've known each other since
yeah,
they were
I want
kids.
to even more,
Yeah.
you can tell because there's a little bit of this unspoken respect between Emma and her brother-in-law. They kind of like, I don't know, just side eye each other with little things, poking at the craziness of her sister sometimes. But yeah, it's ironic that I'm starting with all like the male leads for this movie. But beyond Johnny Flynn, Josh O'Connor is probably one of my favorite actors and will be until we die. Like, thank God he came into our universe during our generation. And talk about range. Like, Dom and I truly always talk about how the types of movies and roles that he plays are so vastly different, yet he's still able to like weasel his charm into any role that he plays. And some of them are not great people, or kind of crazy people. So I was so happy that he was in this movie. I know that he wasn't necessarily the centerpiece, but before we really have more intimate moments between Emma and Mr. Knightley, my thought was, oh, does Emma and Josh O'Connor's character get together? Because there seems to be a little bit of like, I'm not fully understanding what her intentions are and like her behind the scenes like strategy of how she's kind of like workshopping all these people in her realm. But then we quickly learn that she does not want anything to do with him. like the one scene that I'm going to highlight, which is not my favorite scene, but I think is perfectly exemplary of the strength of Josh O'Connor as an actor, is when they are driving in the carriage, snowfall on Christmas. Magical setting. And usually when would set up that scene in a movie, you would think that it's going to be this really romantic interaction. They're going to have this really like passionate kiss in this carriage. And also, can we bring back carriages? Because I need one. They're all like so well designed and beautiful and have little details. Like, well, the one of her and her dad has like flowers inside. Anyway, and part of me was like, oh, okay, they're leaving this dinner party together. What's going to happen? And again, Emma, being Emma, was not at all interested. And we see him unraveling before that during dinner, where he's kind of like looking over at her and smiling and trying to flirt a little bit. And then we get into the carriage and he's continuing that and being a little bit brash in his actions. But then he flips this switch so fast into being so pissed off and so angry and basically like punching the roof of the carriage. And it surprised me a little bit because the way that they introduce his character is very like this, he's smiling the whole time and it's very sinister. You can't fully understand, is this guy for real? Is he really this wonderful of a person, or is his character, is this just a fake disposition that he's putting on? And it is kind of revealed that it is. Like, he has this switch that he can turn on. And I don't think that I can think of any other actor that could have done that moment as well as Josh O'Connor.
Wow. Great scene to call out. But I'm glad that you brought it up, because the whole time I was thinking, wow, on his resume he has this scene and then he has the car scene in Challengers,
Yes.
which is like a great side by side.
I know.
His range.
Such range in all different types of vehicles and all different time periods. And this is also his second priest role, because he also was in the new Knives Out movie, which came out this year.
That's right.
Priest, and he is a very hot priest.
Yeah, Josh O'Connor in this movie is the cherry on top. I feel like every scene that he is in, he steals. I mean,
Yes.
you
can't look
can't.
away.
Yeah, you can't. He's so fun. He's so vibrant, dynamic. I love the silliness that he brings to all of his scenes. And yeah, I think that all of his, like, smiling and being almost like comic relief made the scene in the carriage that much more impactful, because you're like, wait a minute, like what just happened? And for a movie like this, that kind of the tone of this is, I think, is pretty light. I like when we have little things like that make us, hopefully, if you've fallen asleep, that you might, sit up in your chair, sit up in your bed and say, what just happened?
And I think it's the beauty of Jane Austen's writing that, this was written so long ago, but it's portraying a type of male that is so impacted by like the damage of his ego and character that he left that carriage, disappears for 6 weeks, and then comes back with a wife. So it's just something that I think is universal and continues to be in our universe as we meet all different types of people.
All right, I want to talk about the supporting characters, but before we do, I feel like we have to give Anya, or as she pronounces it, but she's British, so I don't know which is the proper way, her performance in this. And what is your background with? Have you seen her in other things before?
Yeah, so I watched The Queen's Gambit. That was probably like I've definitely seen her in multiple things, but that's the first thing that really stands out to me, just because that show got so much praise and I really enjoyed it. She plays these roles like I could really see parts of her. This is like how I would imagine her in real life, and in some ways, not to a T. And similarly in Queen's Gambit, like very much marches to the beat of her own drum, doesn't give a fuck what anyone thinks. but does underneath, but comes off like she doesn't. Because I haven't read Emma, I don't have that baseline of like, well, did she measure up to the real Emma? Is Emma sort of the representation of like the first different type of female character instead of this damsel in distress that we see in every single movie? She also has to do a lot in this movie with
Yeah.
a strong cast. She's interacting and is always like in the center of every interaction. It's all about Emma. It's all about how people perceive her, and it ends up kind of spiraling to her having this like having to face the fact that she's not this like perfect person as maybe she thinks inside. I was very engaged in every scene that she's in. She's an actor that's really beautiful in the way that you can't really look away when she's on screen. She was also in this movie with Ray Fiennes.
Is this like having to do with a dinner party, kind of like a murder-esque?
Yeah, it
We'll
is.
have to save that for our dinner party season.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I'm probably doing Emma and the book a disservice because I don't have much history with it. But yeah, I actually think her character is a lot more complex.
Yeah, no, I think it is progressive. And I'm also speaking from never having read Emma, but I think that you nailed it. I think that to write a character like this in the early 1800s is really different. And also, I mean, I think in our Sense and Sensibility episode, you were pining for an ending that didn't end up, no happy endings. You would have preferred just to have the girls kind of like hanging out together and kind of leaving the future being unknown, but with possibilities ahead. And I felt like even though this movie did have a happy ending and a happy romantic ending, I don't feel like that was the driving force of this story or what made this story interesting. I think that this is more of the type of story that either of us would write, and it's just a little bit more our style because it's not so cookie cutter.
It's funny that you brought up my sentiment about Sense and Sensibility because as you said that, it's almost like in this scenario, I was rooting for her to end up with someone because she's so closed off in different ways that she's not allowing herself to have love. This character is just sort of trying to like find her way in the world because she's very much in a family and in a environment that has sort of been decided for her. So
Mm-hmm.
the way that she breaks the molds is like through her disposition and how she goes about and kind of like creates her own dramas in a way. The movie starts off with such a strong quote to like digest the whole movie, which is that Emma has really never had to face any challenges in her life. The ways in which she walks about this contained area that you're talking about is very interesting psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy can nail that type of character where you have these layers and you're not going to find out, you're not going to get the answer to everything, and you're okay with it. You're fine with it. You don't need to know every little detail. You kind of just accept that she's a little bit of a mystery.
This casting was perfect. She was so perfect for this with this director who directed this movie like it was an art installation, because I feel like Anya's whole like look, like she looks like she could be in a painting.
Yeah.
So this was a home run combo.
Yeah, it really was. I would love to hear a little bit more about if you were to like psychoanalyze a little bit more Emma's character. I do think this character has a lot more flaws than even some of the other films that we're covering this season.
Well, I think the thing that they kind of tell us about her is that she's kind of a little bit, like you said, Laura, she's had everything handed to her. So maybe she's a little naive in that way. But I think she's supposed to come off as like a little snobby, a little elitist. But I think the way I read it, what's going on the inside is that she is someone who obviously loves love. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so excited to be a matchmaker. I mean, I think that she really feels like that's what her calling is. And I want to talk more about that in favorite scenes. Sometimes when something means so much to you, you're afraid that you won't get it. And so I think that she's kind of like hiding in this matchmaking scheme so that she doesn't have to face up with realizing that she wants the thing that she's creating.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's why, like, I like Johnny Flynn's character because he, when everything kind of it feels the heaviest, like he really calls her out on her imperfections and making her kind of like face herself, and the way that she treats people is, I think that she has maybe underlying good intentions, but she's also jealous and a little combative, and she has all these different character traits that are kind of this like spider web throughout the movie. How she treats even Jane's character and like not feeling adequate enough, even though that again she is like so beloved and looked up to in this area. So lots of layers, I would say.
Yes. This movie, like Sense and Sensibility, has so many characters in it. And even this is, I think, my fourth time watching it. I still couldn't keep all the names straight, so I had to kind of copy paste them for us to reference for this episode. But of all the many supporting characters, if you can remember, even if you don't want to call them out by name, were there any that stood out to you?
Yes, I really love basically like the town gossip, the one who's like very boisterous. And
Is it Miss Bates?
I think it's Miss Bates. So Miss Bates is played by Miranda Hart, who is also absolute comedic relief for this movie. She is so funny. If you have not seen the movie Spy, stop right now.
I haven't.
We will definitely, we're gonna have to do that on a Melissa McCarthy season. We keep comparing to Sense and Sensibility, but like really these two characters that are kind of like not super important to move the plot along, but are a good like ping pong match to show how the main character is going to react to them being, need to be in the know about everything. And she has just so many moments throughout this movie that I was like almost in stitches when I was awake. But I really enjoyed Mia Goth in this movie. I thought she was great. She was like perfect. And I hate saying this because I never look down upon any actor, even though they're not my cup of tea. But the first time I watched a movie with Mia Goth was this kind of like, it was almost like a satire, but it had a lot of like these really dark moments. And she was one of those people that kind of like went crazy and AWOL on someone and had like a very violent ending. And I think I had that notion while watching this movie is like, oh my gosh, Harriet Smith is going to absolute snap. She's going to snap. She's going to snap at some point, sort of. She's going to snap just like Josh O'Connor's character snaps. But she doesn't. She kind of remains consistent the whole movie. She is hopelessly wanting to find her match and find the one that makes her feel whole. And I'm so happy that she gets her happily ever after. And I would love to hear yours as well, Michelle, but absolutely love Billy Nye. We could create a compilation season of him at this point. And now also Callum Turner, because we're creating quite the catalog of his movies. Again, the Bill does not have like many words in this movie, but it's the words that he does have are my favorite. As many characters as there are in this movie, because it's a book and they're kind of all over the place. Fantastic casting.
Well, I didn't really share too much about my favorite side supporting characters because I think that you kind of said it all, and I completely agree with you. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about Harriet's character. I mean, Maya Goth, I think, did a fantastic job in portraying her. And it's funny that you said that you kind of thought that she was going to snap in this, but I feel like she kind of brought that energy to this. I don't know if Harriet's like this in the book, but I felt like Harriet's character was a little erratic, a little like I didn't know what she was going to do next. Very like unpredictable energy. I think I would be very unnerved hanging out with her. Yeah, and I think that the character is really annoying, but I think in a similar way to how we were talking about Marianne in Sense and Sensibility, Kate Winslet's character. And I think that the things that we found annoying about her are girls, guys, whatever, humanity's fatal flaws, which are, specifically in this movie, not being able to think for yourself and being so dependent on other people's opinions before you make any move, including when she was so in love from the very beginning, but she was willing to throw it all away just because Emma, said so. So yeah, it was just making me think, okay, this is just another example of how Jane Austen nailed like human behavior and how now we do, I think that we do this in real life, but I mean, like social media has just kind of like imploded this kind of behavior. Like who knows what Harriet would be like if she had an Instagram account.
There's a lot going on, and I think there's a lot to resonate with, and there's a lot to almost like have to look at yourself in the mirror and see the things that you don't want to see, especially as a female in her adolescence or coming of age.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, these are really complicated women characters, which are just, they're so fantastic. How about you? What's on your dislike list?
I think, unfortunately, a flaw with I don't know if it's specifically just like a preference or just attention spans and how they're dwindling and how we like things a little bit more tight in movies. But there are a lot of characters in this movie. As much as I love spending time with kind of these individual side comedic reliefs and characters that bring a lot to the movie, I was very lost. I was very like lost in this storyline, but I think because it was so beautiful and I enjoyed the moments with especially the main characters, it almost didn't matter to me. But I found myself confused with the plot and like how these characters are connected. I feel like there wasn't so much setup about how Emma and Harriet like came to be. I know that they probably could have made this movie too long, but I feel like having some like type of initial background or introduction of how they met would have been helpful. It's almost like something that was in some inciting incident, like she meets Harriet and she's trying to help her matchmake. They kind of just throw us into the fire. And there were just a lot of moments that I felt like I was confused, but I also think it's a fault of maybe my intelligence and not being able to fully understand the way that they speak so eloquently in this movie.
Well, I don't think that it is a reflection of your intelligence, but you just made me wonder if when these filmmakers, because there have been so many adaptations of all of Jane Austen's stories, do they create them thinking, oh, everyone knows this story already, so I don't really need to explain much. I mean, this story that's been around for like hundreds of years. I mean, I wonder what population is coming to watch these from our perspective, not knowing these stories or these characters and not having any background.
Even, when we're introduced to like, well, there's the anticipation of Frank Churchill coming, and I'm like, I don't know who Frank Churchill is. I just know that it's going to be Callum Turner because Callum Turner is in this movie, and they're going to use this perfect opportunity to have this beautiful man coming in on horseback. But I was, again, all very confused.
I agree with you because this is my fourth time watching it, and I knew he was coming, but I felt like it wasn't until this rewatch that I took note of how much they were talking about him in the
Yeah.
beginning, like kind of like from one of the very first scenes, that okay, like this is going to be a big plot point, that she's kind of like waiting for this guy to show up. But I think the first few times when I didn't know that name, I didn't even know who Callum Turner was the first time I watched this movie, so I had nothing to go off of. And yeah, I felt like his like and Sense and Sensibility, I think that this is something that I both, I don't know, I like it, but there's also something about it that annoys me, that it seems like all of these Regency stories not only have so many characters, but they don't, some of them aren't going to show up until, halfway through the movie. Frank and Jane and Mrs. Eaton are all, they're all so, well, I shouldn't say they all have such a presence. Mrs. Eaton definitely has a presence. Like she lets her character be known. But they are three kind of important characters, and we don't get them till the end, which is kind of
Yeah.
like
It's
it's just
also,
not what we're used to.
and I also think it's a lot to squeeze. I mean, there's a reason this is a book, right? Yeah, there's other characters being introduced, but you have all this time. Feels like you have more time to get to know them when reading it. Whereas I think in a movie setting, you only have 2 hours to squeeze that all in and explain everything to everyone. And you have people kind of, it's like a swinging door of new people. But I think I give Autumn and filmmakers who decide to take on these stories and make them into films. I think it's really brave, because it's hard to adapt it and have it work and have people like me be able to just like look past it, even if I don't fully understand what's going on, to still appreciate it.
You brought up the seasons in things that you liked. I don't want to completely say that I disliked them, but I didn't feel like they really added much to the movie, especially when you were talking about kind of being confused, and obviously you fell asleep at a couple points. If you told me, okay, this movie has these 4 markers or these 4 chapters, I would think that that would make it easier to digest. But I both don't feel like it helped with that. And I also don't think, other than they had the Christmas scene, that even the
I can't wait to
visuals,
talk about that scene.
even the visuals, I don't feel like were reflections of the seasons. Like fall didn't feel super fall and spring didn't feel super spring. Like it all kind of had a similar look to me, but I loved that look so much that I wasn't that upset by it. I don't know if you noticed this or not, or had this feeling, but the lighting, especially in all the outdoor scenes, like it always looked like they either shot them like at dusk or at twilight. Like it had almost this little bit of cozy, but not like warm sunlight, more like cool. Like especially that scene where she's walking out to the greenhouse in the beginning. I love that kind of lighting. It's like so comforting to me for some reason.
Yeah. No, I agree. I and my praise for the seasons was more about the production decisions to kind of have that snapshot, because again, it's almost not a portrait, but like something you would have, you like see on Instagram or see something printed off in a magazine, and less about it adding anything to the movie, because I don't think that it did.
Yeah. I also, I'm not positive about this, but for all the season kind of bumpers, did the scenes even, like the background change, or was it just the text?
I think it was just I can't really remember now, but I just thought it was a cool like setup, but then it's not really a setup because I couldn't really tell between the seasons. So
Wow. I'm curious if that was intentional. Like they're like, no, we're not going to change it for some reason that I'm missing. But we'll have to ask Autumn when we have dinner with her.
we didn't include the greenhouse in our setting praise, and man, I mean, that has been on my list for a long time. Dom always says that, like, the way that I describe my dream house, he's like, you live in a drug lord's house. Like, you want a fountain, you want a greenhouse, you want all these very specific settings. But, like, talk about flowers and looking forward to spring. Again, like, it's a perfect backdrop to kind of put Emma and Anna Taylor Joy's character in kind of like this beautiful but almost like mysterious and very still setting. Like she's walking through these plants and this bloom, and like you think you can see everything because it's all glass, but we don't actually know who she is.
What a metaphor.
Should we talk about our favorite scenes and favorite quotes?
Yes.
So, my favorite scene, which is probably not going to be so surprising to you because I always love and again, another point that I'm remembering that we didn't bring up is how beautiful the score is in this movie and the music. I almost, no wonder I was falling asleep because it was so like soothing, and it's reminding me tomorrow I'm absolutely going to turn on the soundtrack because absolutely beautiful. My favorite scene is when Mr. Knightley and Jane play together. They perform this song, and it's strange to say that because in this romantic cookie cutter setting, it would have been Anya Taylor-Joy and Mr. Knightley performing together and us seeing this chemistry that they have. But instead, they throw in her nemesis basically to have this extremely intimate moment. And I was almost in tears during that scene because you're seeing the look on her face that she's falling a little bit more in love with him, and she's seeing him in this different setting, and it's not because she's jealous. Maybe that's what like pushes her to think about him in a different light. And there's some other nods I think throughout the movie, that like moments when she's holding her niece or their niece, and like there's kind of these intimate very quick moments with them, but that entire setting I just think was really, really such a quiet moment of the movie, yet so loud in the musical piece that came out of it. And it really moved me.
Did you read that every one of the musical performances in this movie were played by the actors and the singing? Isn't that gorgeous? Like it was like raw, but
Yeah.
also polished. It's really hard to do both of those things.
Yeah, because even Anya Taylor-Joy, like she has this very like specific singing voice, and it's not, oh my gosh, she's amazing, but she has a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Have her performance, and then Jane in the other scene, Jane just getting up there and completely crushing the entire scene. And then I will throw out my other somewhat comedic relief. I love all the dinner party scenes, which we will save for our next sections, but specifically the Christmas dinner. And when someone announces that it's snowing outside and everyone loses their minds. I thought it was like a bit for a second of them being like, oh, they're just joking around. But I forgot during that time period, like if it snows and you have to get back home, you're kind of screwed. I was laughing so hard because I just felt like it's so accurate in a way, and it's so dramatic and so of this time period that like everyone just dropped everything that they were doing and left. And then it led us to this really intense scene with Josh and Anya, which was great. And then also during one of my favorite quotes during that dinner, or it's sorry, I don't know if there's a lot of dinner parties, so I might be getting confused, but there is a moment with Emma's dad and the older woman, when they're at this dinner party, and he says to her like, she should only have half a glass of wine and it should be in a water tumbler.
I love that you pointed out the Christmas dinner scene, because I mean, maybe it is, but I doubt that humor is in the book. That almost feels like a modern decision to highlight, again, like the humanity of people, like don't really change from, from era to era, and that that's exactly how, people would get hysterical like that. Like, oh, we have to go, people are still like, we have to buy our milk and our bread, anytime a snowstorm's coming.
Yeah,
So that
humans really
was,
don't change that much
yeah,
over time.
that was a great inclusion. Okay, so I also have kind of one serious favorite scene and one silly favorite scene. So the serious one, I would say, is the scene where we are really seeing Mr. Knightley and Emma falling in love at the dance right before they start dancing together, and they're another gorgeous shot. They're standing in the doorway, and we're kind of like the camera's positioned behind them. And I love this conversation that they have because, again, I don't know if this is in the book or not, or they just kind of like amped it up for a modern audience. But I think the thing that makes her fall in love with him is the fact that in that exchange, he compliments her and is saying, like, this matchmaking that you're doing, like, you're really good at it. And I feel like that's such a like underrated thing that people, not a lot of people do in their relationships, is just like recognizing the other person and, validating her
And
life's
really, like,
work.
seeing her like he sees her.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And he's acknowledging it. And as he's saying that, like, you're feeling the energy changing. I just thought that that was beautifully shot and beautifully written.
Really, every like moment with the two of them, it's almost like it's almost pushing like a domino, but like one domino at a time, right? Instead of it all coming down at once, like we get these like little, just little, almost bite-sized, beautiful moments with the two of them, because you know that they've had almost a lifetime of moments together, but they make each of these really meaningful.
Yeah, the pacing really worked for me.
Slow burn, yearning.
Yes. I love a yearning. And then my favorite funny scene was the reveal of the framed painting by Mr. Eaton to Emma and Harriet. I mean, the theatrics of this scene, the music cues, the two footmen who make me laugh in every scene that they're in. This whole movie, I think, is very quirky, but I feel like that scene is like the height of the quirkiness, and I could not stop laughing.
One of the
So
footmen
joyful.
is in the show. He is the so he's Fleabag's like step nephew in the show Fleabag, and he is like they literally always say like throughout the show, "Oh my God, you're being so creepy." Like, and he's so good in this movie because he has no lines, but he plays the bassoon in the show, and I feel like I could also see that character playing the bassoon. He's so great.
I wonder if it's the same actor because they're kind of two footmen, and one of them is in The Crown with Josh O'Connor, and they play
Yes.
brothers. I don't know if he plays Prince Andrew or the other one, but yeah, it was fun to see them again together in this. All right, favorite lines. Really, anything that Miss Bates says, and I mean, I think that her big scene was like the hat shop scene. I mean, it like she made me dizzy in the best way.
Also, when she is yelling at her mom that they
Yeah.
got invited to Emma's house for dinner, and she screams, and then it immediately cuts to the dinner. Incredible, incredible cutting decisions.
I love her energy, and I did have this written down for things I didn't like, but the scene, I mean, it's so heartbreaking to me, the scene where Emma, is kind of mean to her when they're at the picnic.
Yeah.
And I think it's because unlike Mrs. Jennings, I don't know, I see Miss Bates as being like so much more like wholesome and innocent, and like she
Very-
hasn't like she's like truly so excited about everything, and I feel like I can identify with that a little bit. So I think I was just like, oh, this is like so hard to watch, but
I know.
it was great. It was still good. And then just two other lines / exchanges. I think this is at the beginning. This may be at the wedding of Emma's governess, Mrs. Weston, formerly Miss Taylor, and Mr. Elton is kind of giving his dearly beloved, we gather here, and he says, "Holy matrimony, an honorable estate instituted by God, in this time of a man's great innocence. And then Emma's dad goes, innocence. He's like, innocence, no? And it's just another one of these little, like, I'm sure things like this happens in the 1800s, but we're never seeing it in books or movies. Like, just these little idiosyncrasies, which I love calling out. Then my last quote is, I think this is a famous quote, and this one is written by Jane Austen herself, and this is said by Mr. Knightley, where he said, "If I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more." So poetic.
That is a great scene when they finally kind of come to, or she like agrees that she wants to be with him, and she gets a nosebleed. And I could be dreaming this, but I think that she actually did get a nosebleed in that scene.
It may be true, but I think what I read is that, and this is another thing we can add to the Autumn list, is that I think Autumn gets nosebleeds, so she threw that in there because she thought it was.
So maybe she didn't actually get one. That would have been crazy. Maybe I was mixing it up. There's all these weird cosmic things I feel like you always hear that happen on set, like that are not
like
good. That Kate Winslet got hypothermia from the rain machines. Well, lots of food moments in this movie, that even though the food was also just as fake in this movie as Sense and Sensibility, it was a lot more tasteful. Like if I had to boil it down, I just would want to be at tea time, like them drinking out of those beautiful teacups and little biscuits and like these little bites, more apples or peaches, we're not really sure. They ate a lot of jello during this time period, which is
it's unusual to me.
Not really super appealing to me. It reminds me of hospitals. Yeah, all of their dinner parties looked so elaborate. Erica's not on this episode, but she just boiled it down so well in our Sense and Sensibility episode about how these dinners during this time period are so, like, there's always like a pig's head or a full platter and these like big elaborate settings, which really just like add to, I think, the time period.
There was so in the scene where Emma was mean to Miss Bates, another elaborate picnic, did you notice in the background they had almost like a little cart that looked like it had ice cream sundaes on it, but like no one was eating them? I would have been all over that.
Was sitting at these picnics and not eating. In Sense and Sensibility, they had about 3 loaves of bread and this beautiful, Michelle, you and I are having a picnic.
And we're going to eat the food.
Together, and we're going to eat the food. Does champagne theory hold up?
It can't be possible that it wasn't invented yet. So I did a little digging. It says, according to the internet, by the early 1800s, when the story takes place, champagne was being produced in large quantities and was becoming popular among the aristocracy and the upper class. And it was also during this time that most famous champagne houses were founded. Okay. So I feel like
someone was going to Paris, going to Champagne outside of Paris.
Yeah.
Seeing it here.
I think if we didn't see it, it was there.
I think I could see Frank's character like bringing a case of it on his horse. He's like, I just went to Paris and I'm bringing us all champagne bottles.
I think that one other just funny thing is that Harriet had a line where she said that she loves walnuts and that once Mr. Robert Martin went 3 miles to find her some.
Yes. I think I'm just going to keep it. I think we should keep it consistent, and I think we should do another dinner party, like
a Christmas
in the dinner party setting, at Emma's house. We'll each give each other 2 people. What do we usually do? We haven't had a me and you for a while.
Let's do 2 and 2.
All right. I'm gonna give you Frank. And I'm also gonna give you one of the the henchmen, not a henchman, but
one of the servers.
One of the servers.
The footman.
One of the guys who presents the painting. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good choices. All right. I'm gonna give you Mrs. Weston, who was the former governess, the one who gets married at the beginning, who I felt like was really just a kind lady.
Yeah.
and also Mrs. Eaton, who is Josh O'Connor's wife.
Okay. Okay. I think Mrs. Weston is going to show up at this dinner party not long after her wedding, and she wants to share her wedding cake with the group. I don't think during this time period they did the trend where you freeze your wedding cake, which I hope people still don't do. But she is like, I want to keep the celebration going, and I'm so grateful for Emma, that I ended up with this dream life. And I think that she's bringing champagne. I think that somehow, even since we didn't see champagne in the movie, we're going to bring it into our own dinner party. I like to believe that somehow she got champagne from someone, perhaps from her partner. He has a friend there's always people, boarders coming in and out of Paris and bringing
Wards.
Yes. So I think she's bringing champagne and wedding cake.
I
Great.
love her.
Remind me of the second woman's name, Josh.
Mrs. Eaton.
I'm going to keep the dessert theme going. I feel like she loves macaroons. Maybe because we do see her during tea time, but I think that she's going to bring like a box of macaroons, all different colors, all different shades to tie back to this beautiful movie. And I think that I could see her bringing either some type of decor or napkins, because she's like a little rough around the edges. She's one of those people that you meet and you're like, Josh is bringing his wife again. Like, oh, we gotta hang out with her. So she's gonna bring something that like she either made, which is a really sweet thought, or like she just thinks that the party isn't like decorated in the way that it should be. So maybe she brings like her own napkins, maybe even like her own teacups or something. Like, she is a very particular person and she thinks that she's being kind, but it's actually offensive.
I think that's spot on from what we see in the movie. That, well, if we're assuming that this is Mrs. Weston's, the person that we're supposed to be celebrating, that Mrs. Eaton is kind of upstaging her and saying, this is kind of like, oh, it's my responsibility to throw a proper party.
All right, what is Frank Churchill bringing?
I think Frank Churchill is bringing a roast on a big platter with all the fixins, which I feel like I shared this for another recent character, but my twist with Frank is I think he makes a big deal of like being very manly and like, I'm going to bring the meat and I'm going to be like the dominant person at this table. I'm going to put it down. But I think that he's secretly a vegetarian, that when he slices it and it gets, or someone slices it and he gets served on his plate, that he doesn't touch it. And someone starts to call him out on it. They say like, Frank, my good man, why are you not consuming your goose head? And I think he's, he'll make an excuse that like, his stomach is upset from his ride.
It being like a trend that like being a vegetarian is new and he's trying to be cool. And I could also see him bringing like the pig and taking the apple out of the mouth, because I just keep
seeing
that image of him biting into the apple.
I know. I also like that, Laura, because I could see Jane, who ends up being his wife, being vegan.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think this is like their thing.
They're a non-meat household.
Okay. One of the footmen, who is my other person who's coming to this dinner party, I don't know. I get the sense from him that he's very squirrely. So I think that he's like a nibbler and doesn't like the idea of like one main thing. I think he's more like tapas style, that he wants to bring like 10 small dishes for the table that everyone can, mix and match with. And for some reason, I don't know why, maybe because I made this earlier this week, I'm seeing him bringing like homemade hummus and with vegetables and maybe some olives. I don't know. I feel like whenever I order tapas, I always end up with like a potato, like a sliced, like roasted potato with like good spices on it. I think that would be one of them.
I don't know why I'm immediately picturing this character getting like chocolate bonbons, like little chocolate treats, which is also
little truffles.
And I'm
yeah.
just thinking about him like needing little things, is I could also picture him, they're very like anxious because they always need to be like moving at a moment's notice. So like they have to like eat things that are very like fast.
Yeah.
And like don't involve forks. Like because at any moment's notice they could be like, get up, you have to open the doors.
Yes. I'm actually surprised that we didn't, I mean, maybe we missed this, but that they didn't have food in their mouth at
Yes.
any scene.
Well,
Just
you
like,
never see them eat. They're always working. They're always on the job. Oh wow. This is great. Michelle, are we ready for this or that?
ready.
Okay. Number one, going to one of the scenes that I highlighted. Would you rather be stuck in a carriage with an angry Josh O'Connor or be stuck at sea with your crying baby?
Oh, man. I think I'm going to have to go with the carriage because
Too.
at least the carriage is pretty and Josh O'Connor is pretty. Maybe he'll fall asleep or maybe he'll leave like he does in the movie.
Okay. Pick a suitor, Mr. Knightley or Frank Churchill.
Mr. Knightley, all the way.
Would you rather have Emma's like dreamy dining room or her greenhouse?
I think the greenhouse, especially if I have someone else who tends to it.
Agreed. Okay, would you rather get made fun of in front of all your friends like Mrs. Bates, or would you rather find out your crush is in love with your best friend?
I guess get made fun of like Miss Bates did. I mean, they're both really bad, but
I know.
I think I could bounce back from that one. All right. You ready for yours?
I am.
All right. So we already established this job is done by the same guy in the movie, but if you were a servant at the Woodhouse estate, would you rather be the one who carries the light to the greenhouse or the one who has to arrange the screens in the sitting area?
Probably arrange the screens. Because then I would just want to hang out in the greenhouse and I would probably get fired because I would be tending to all the flowers. So
Another carriage ride question. Would you rather go on a 3-hour carriage ride with Miss Bates or Mrs. Eaton?
oh, probably Mrs. Bates. She's fine. I would make her laugh.
Yeah, at least she's kind. If you had an afternoon to yourself in Emma's world, would you rather spend it making a flower arrangement or painting a portrait?
I'm not good at either. But I feel like just because I'm really wanting spring to come, probably the flowers. And then in the summer, I would whip out an easel and just sit in a grassy knoll and paint some sheep.
I can attest you are talented at both. All right, last one. Would you rather get a nosebleed during your engagement or be secretly engaged until your fiance's aunt dies?
Really get a nosebleed. It makes for a good story.
That's true.
Well, this season is going to continue. So next week, we're going to be covering Pride and Prejudice?
Question mark?
Question mark? I'm not sure. That or Wuthering Heights. So make sure you tune in and continue to enjoy this era with us.
We'll see you then.
See you then.